Hello everyone, this is RC Ron, and I'm back with another programming video for the Futaba 14Sg. Today we're going to be talking about programming Flaperons. This actually came to exist as one of our viewers had been looking at some of the other videos, and he sent me a text requesting that we do a programming video for Flaperons and also for elevators. The aileron mixed with the elevator. So anyway, we're going to be covering the programming Flaperons on this video, and hopefully I'll be able to get to the aileron elevator mix on a video within about 2 weeks. First thing I want to point out is that the printed materials that we use in this video, the flowchart, will be available, and the only thing you'll have to do is go to a link in the video description and you'll be able to download it if you choose to do so. On this video I used a 7-channel, it's a 7008 SB fast test receiver, and you set your model to airplane, 2 ailerons and 2 flaps. You have to do it to 2 ailerons and 2 flaps in order to make this work. Also normal rudder and tail. And so with the Futaba programming, you come out with the ailerons preset for you on channels 1 and channel 6. Now as we get started, I just want to emphasize that before you ever try and start using these Flaperons, have your maiden completed. Have everything exactly the way it needs to be, test flown and properly set up before you ever attempt to use the Flaperons. Flaperons, you never really know how effective they're going to be. Most of the time you can get them to a point where they're very effective in the flap mode. However, it's very easy. There seems to be a point on some aircraft to where you just lose the effectiveness of the ailerons when you have the flaps in the full down position. So with that, we'll go ahead and get ready, and I will get the receiver out so we can proceed. Now this is the flowchart that goes with this video. It is available for download for anyone that desires. I know that there's some of you that's watching this video even right now, and you're very proficient with the 14SG. You've done a lot of programming with it, and you may have just turned to this just to see exactly how I was approaching it, because many of these things can be done several different ways. So anyway, I think that's fantastic, and looking at this flowchart may be all you will actually need to do. However, there's a lot of people that are new to the 14SG. There's a lot of people that are really don't know that much about the programming at this stage in their flying career. So what I'm trying to do is to provide all the details in this video for those who are very new at programming this radio, or maybe those that have just stumbled across it and you're just hoping to learn a little bit more about the radio and its programming. Whichever category you're in, I hope this video is going to be helpful to you. So with that, we will go on to the actual programming. Thank you. Alright, I had said we were going into our receiver, but we're not going into the receiver. We're actually going into the transmitter. We're going to get everything set up as far as our transmitter is concerned first. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going into our link menu. 2 taps, you'll be in link menu. First thing we want to do is enter the function menu. Scroll right down to function, enter. Now then, we want to go to the second page. S1 takes you there. Then we want to go down to channel 8. You will notice I've already got channel 8 selected as flap in this because I've already been working with this program. But all I have to do is go to that function, tap enter into it, And then I can set that value or set that channel to be any function that I want it to be. I want it to be flaps, so I hit it and it says, are you sure? And I verify it. We want to go then to the next page. We want to do basically the same thing for channel 9, except we want it set to camber. Once again, I'll go through it, enter in, and you can move it to any function you want it to be. You put it on camber, select, it says, are you sure? And you are sure, so you accept it. Now then, we want to go down, we want to do the same thing with flap 2. Very same process. We want channel 10 to be on flap 2. Now before we go any further, after we've got it set up for flap 2, let's go back up here to switch G, which I've already got set. But on channel 9 for our camber, we want it to be operating from switch G. Here too, you can go in and select any switch that you want it to be. Doesn't really matter what switch you want it to be on. I like to set it on switch G. It is a 3-position switch. It's at the top right of my transmitter, and I can reach it while on takeoff when I want to raise flaps or I want to put them down without ever taking my hands actually off of the elevator and aileron controls. So we want that set on switch G. That's simple. So we've got that taken care of. Now then, I'm going to back up to the function menu one more time, and I'm just going to tap to come out of it. Remember, we are using a 7-channel receiver here. I have told you set up for operation on channels 8, 9, and 10. Yes, I meant to do that very simply because as far as this transmitter is concerned, the transmitter, I've got it set up for this particular receiver that I have listed here. It's a 7008 SB, and it is a 7-channel receiver, although you can expand it by using a serial bus decoder if you choose to, or you can actually pair it up with another receiver. But when we set up our transmitter, we're setting up for a 14-channel system, even though we're only using the 7. What happens is our transmitter thinks we've got 14 channels that we're going to use. And the transmitter is going to let us set those 14 channels up any way we want to. But we only have 7 slots to plug in our servos. But with Flaperons, we're using the same servos for our flaps as we are for our ailerons. So it's not going to present a problem. When we set up for 2 flaps, we actually the transmitter actually provides a mix for us to adjust the flap set. Then it also provides another mix for us, which is the camber mix. So that's what we're going to be using here in just a couple minutes. So don't get confused. Trust me, it will work using channels 8, 9, and 10. Doesn't have to be those 3 channels. You can use any other 3 channels that you so choose. All right, before we leave here, one other thing we want to do real quick is we want to go into the sub-trim setting. Right here, enter into the sub-trim. I have already adjusted the sub-trim on this transmitter for the mock-up receiver and servos that I have here. I had to put in this amount here, the -14, in order to get the arms at the very same angle as the other one. So that is very critical, because this is going to be the neutral position that you use for your maiden flight. When you take off of that first maiden, you want both ailerons set exactly neutral, as close as you can get them. So this allows us to do that. So with that being said, we're going to back out of our sub trim. Now we're going, we don't even have to do that. We can just go here and select our model menu. And with the model menu setting, what we want to do is go down to our flap set. Flap set, right over here on the right hand column, we want to enter into flap set. Now the flap set, all we're going to do, I've got everything set for 100%, and that is actually the default on it. Flap 1, flap 2, 100% both up and down. And then you have an offset here that you can use. Now if you're setting up for normal flaps, where the flaps are separate for the ailerons, then this can come in very handy. You do your linkages, get them as close as you possibly can mechanically, and then you come back, and if you need just a little bit of offset on one of them to make it match the other one, this allows you to do that. But we don't want to touch this offset when we're setting up for Flaperons, because we just got through setting up for our maiden flight and we have our ailerons adjusted perfectly at this point. So if you changed anything here as far as our offset on our flaps, then what's going to happen is you've changed your neutral position that you need on your ailerons for your maiden flight. So with that having been said, we've got this set exactly the way we need it to be. So we're going to still stay in the model menu. Now we're in our flap set menu. So what we want to do, still in the model menu, just go right straight down to Camber Mix. Select Camber Mix. And this is the way the screen is going to look when you get there, if you've never activated it before. Camber Mix, first thing you want to do is go down to the Actuate, select, and Actuate. Now then what you want to do is go to your switch position, and here what we're going to do is select the switch that we want to operate this. Now we've already set it up with switch G for our camber, and that was when we were in the function menu. By doing this here, it's going to allow us to set the on-off positions of our switch. So we're going to enter into that on-off, and what we'll do is just scroll right down. I select that to off. The other two positions come up automatically. You can change those if you want. I like to use switch G. It's the top right of my transmitter. Makes it very easy for me to switch my flaps on and off without actually even taking my hands off of the elevator aileron stick. So we've got it on off position right there, and we're just going right back out of it. So that has that switch position set up for us now. We can back out one more step. Now we come across to our ailerons. You want to select your aileron, and this is setting your mix. So we're going to enter into the aileron. You've got rate 1, rate 2, and you've got aileron 1, aileron 2. Now then, which one of these, rate 2 or rate 1, controls your first position flaps or your second position flaps? You have to determine yourself just by experimenting, simply because the way you set up your aircraft, the way your servos are set, full reverse position, or whatever you have done as far as servos go, it can affect this. So it doesn't really matter. You figure out which one it is. You'll notice I've got this 15% on aileron 1, and my second position is 30%. Your negative or positive controls the direction that you're actually causing the aileron throws to move. So, and this is actually the mix now for your camber with the ailerons. Alright, so Same situation here, aileron 2. So once we've got that done, we're going to back out of it. Now then, if you should have a situation where you need to set your down elevator or up elevator as far as to cancel out ballooning or diving when you turn your flaps on, this is the place to do it. Very simple to do. Rate 1, rate 2, and you put in a small amount. I've just put in these amounts for demonstration. It does not take much at all. But some of you are going to know just from the type plane that you've got and having watched other people with those types of aircraft exactly which way you're going, whether you're going to get ballooning or whether you're going to get diving, or if it's even going to be affected by your application of your flaps. You need to determine that, though. Once you determine which way you need the correction, here is where you're going to adjust it. Now then, you'll notice at the bottom of the page, and I put a little notation on there, and I've given explicit directions in a separate box in the bottom of our flowchart that tells you how to go in and increase your trim rate for your elevator for your first flights that you're using your Flaperons. That enables you to have more movement out of your actual trim switch itself on your transmitter for the elevator, and that way it gives you a little bit better amount of movement that you can use to counteract those for your first few flights until you find out how much elevator is actually going to be used. So with that, I'm going to shut this off, and then we'll get together and take a look at how this actually affects our servos and their operation. Alright, here's our mock-up. Got 3 servos set up, 2 operating as the elevators. 2 operating as the ailerons, 1 is the elevator. When I move my aileron stick, you'll notice they're moving just like normal ailerons would. Elevator moves the same way that it should be moving. Of course, you may have to adjust your direction according to the type plane you're flying. But everything seems to be working exactly as it should be. We've got pretty good alignment between our arms on our aileron servos. We can make small changes still if we should need to. At this point, you may or may not be able to hear this. I'm pushing the switch G to the first position. But yet we're getting no movement at all out of the flap servos, turning the flaps on. I'm in the middle position now, nothing. But when I go to the full flap position, I am getting movement. But we want movement in both positions. We just want to go a little less on the first position flaps and then the full flaps. Also, you'll notice that the elevator servo is moving along with the deployment of the flaps, which is what we've set up. So anyway, what I want to do at this point, I'm going to get the radio back over here. I'll have to adjust my zoom here for just a moment to where you can see what's going on. But what I want to do is go back into my model menu, and I want to go back down to my CAMBER mix. Now then, I hope you can see this all right. What I need to do is come down here. Remember, we set the switch G in order to get movement the way we wanted it, and I have no explanation for why I'm only getting movement here in the full flap position and not in the mid flap position. However, I have determined that if I come back down here to switch G, select it, come back over and go to the 2 dashes, select that. Now when I back out of it, you'll notice I've changed the switch back to just the 2 dashes, which is actually supposed to represent always on. Now when I come back over here, first position, notice I'm just going from no flaps to first position. Let me zoom in just a little bit more so you can tell a little more about what's going on. When I move, right now I have flaps fully up. I've got some movement in first position. Then when I go to full flap, I've got more movement. You're going to have to adjust these movements according to what you're willing to try when you first try out your flaps. I suggest very minimal movement in first position and in full flaps in order to make sure you don't affect your ailerons in a negative way. But now, like I say, I do not have the explanation. I've got a couple ideas about why I may have had to go back and do that. But it seems to be, because I've gone through it several different times, and it seems to be that that's part of what has to happen in order to get it working the way we want it to work. So with that, I'm going to close out this video, and I'm going to tell you I hope that you can get everything exactly the way you want it, and I hope that you'll have your flaps working perfectly.